Welcome back, race fans. Chris here with Jaeger Bums Fantasy Sports to bring you another DFS NASCAR preview show. This week we got the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Cup Series heading to Kansas Speedway for the first of two races for both series at the track this year. This will also be the third race on an intermediate track. A little bit different setup for the Cup because Darlington, as we know, used the new 750 horsepower package, while Las Vegas used the 670 horsepower package. So for Cup, we're going to look a little bit more in terms of the track type history, a little bit more towards comparing Las Vegas to what we maybe see this weekend at Kansas. And then for O'Reilly Auto Parts, we're going to look at both tracks, even though Darlington is a little bit different, a little bit shorter, a little bit more tire wear, that sort of stuff. But we've got some exciting racing here at Kansas this week. So let's dive into the cheat sheets and start having a look and breaking down the data. So first of all, we've got the O'Reilly Auto Parts race coming on Saturday. Practices later today and qualifying 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday with the race Saturday afternoon. When we are looking at, give me a second here, we will sort this pricing out here. We've got William Byron at the top at 12.5. He hasn't raced here in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series since 2017. Picked up a fourth place finish then. Justin Allgaier right behind him at 12K. Been on quite a run. Been very, very good on the intermediate tracks. We got Brandon Jones right behind him and Brent Cruz in the 10K range. Three drivers in the 9K range and Sheldon Creed, Carson Quapple, and Sam Mayer here. And then we've got 5, 6 drivers in the 8K range with Corey Day, Jesse Love, Taylor Gray, Austin Hill, and Sammy Smith. Looks like there's an excellent value, at least in terms of track history, in that mid tier in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series here. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to look at some track history, and I'm going to sort it by the last 10 races to start with. Obviously, leading the way is William Byron, only one race, finished fourth with a 4.0 average finish, obviously. But behind him, we've got Sheldon Creed, 3 straight top fives. Here, we've got Austin Hill, who's got 3 straight finishes of seventh or better, and seventh or better in 4 of his last 5 trips. Jesse Love finished top 10 in each of the last 2 races. Brandon Jones won the 2025 race here, and he has got 3 wins going back all the way to 2019. Hasn't finished worse than 11th, and he's got 6 top 10s in his last 7 top 10s in his last 8 races here. So very good track history for Brandon Jones, especially in the short term. Multiple winner, leads all drivers. He's the only driver in the field actually with a win here at Kansas. Dean Thompson, Sawalowicz, 10th and 11th last year in their only trips to Kansas. Some track notes, actually, just looking at some previous. I've got the race notes up here. We're looking at a very high correlation to starting position. We've hit, and if we go look at that track history, looking at this correlation here, which is just correlating finish position to where the driver has started. Higher number here in this correlation just means it's more important for starting position, puts a lot more pressure on qualifying. We see that a lot on tracks where we don't, short tracks, especially the short flat tracks. We see the opposite in terms of Talladega, Daytona, Atlanta. But here for intermediate tracks, this is fairly high in terms of the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, as we have seen 0.600 or higher correlation in 4 of the last 5 races here. The winner has started top 10, started on the pole last year. Brandon Jones started from the pole, led 54 laps from the pole in that race. But generally, we see the outside the top 5, but the winner has started top 10 in 9 of the last 10 races. Place differential has been pretty down in 3 of the last 4 races, and I'm for O'Reilly Auto Parts. I'm going back to 2022 for most of this data that I'm reading off here, just because before that we didn't have practice. That was during the COVID times. There was no practice, so I really wanted to look at the data when we came back to practice in 2022, same as we do with the next gen era in the Cup Series going back to 2022. I just think that data is just a little bit more relevant to what we're looking for now that there is practice every weekend. So, looking at the lap leaders in each of these last 4 races in the Xfinity Series before this, Raleigh Auto Parts Series, plus their start and their practice speeds, we'll just go through and we will break it down. So last year, the lap leader 79, he started. Justin Allgaier started 5th. He practiced 14th. And then second there was Brandon Jones. He started on the pole. He led 54 laps. He was 11th in practice. So practice didn't really show a strong correlation in terms of the lap leaders. It did show a strong correlation and that is that number here. Anything over 0.3 is a strong correlation, and obviously getting into the 0.5s, 0.6s, which we don't generally see, is even higher correlation to practice speeds versus finish position. Going to the 2024 race, we had Chandler Smith start second. He led 114 laps, and he was 12th in practice. So again, outside, that's a third straight lap leader dominator that has been outside the top 10 in terms of practice speeds, but starting up front. 48 laps. Cole Custer was second dominator here in the 2024 race. He started third, practice 11th. So that's four straight outside the top 10. So practice isn't very correlated to when we're looking at dominators. Looking at the long run speed is probably a little bit more important than just your single practice speed. We'll go back into the 2023 race here now. John Hunter Nemechek led 154 laps from the seventh starting position, 11th in practice. Second was Justin Allgaier. He led 40 from the pole. He was second in practice, so there was some strong speed. He didn't end up getting the finish in that race. Didn't really give us the DK score that we were looking for. And then 2022, we didn't. The 66 was the most. It was only 93 laps in that race, so it was a shortened race. But the lap leader, Ty Gibbs, he started second, first in practice, and then right behind him, Noah Gregson, 20 laps led from fifth, and he was second in practice. So a little bit more correlation to practice in the 2022 race. But what we seen was the lap leader came from starting position fifth, second, seventh, and second, and then the second dominator in those races came from first, third, first, and fifth. So all outside of the 2023 race, the leader, the 154 lap leader in the 2023 race, which was John Hunter Nemechek, all of those top two dominators in all four of those races came from a top five starting position. So that's something that we're going to be looking for after qualifying when we're trying to nail down our dominators, is looking for guys that are going to be starting top five in the race. The pole sitter. So this is another one. The pole sitter laps led over those four races. 54 last year. The lap leader, or sorry, the pole sitter led 4 in 2024, 40 in 2023, and 4 in 2022. So twice the pole sitter was kind of a dud in terms of dominator. So not always the pole sitter, but inside the top five is very, very highly correlated. All right, so we will go back to the main side of the cheat sheet here, and we'll look at some intermediate going back to the start of last year and see who's been the best on those. And we will actually go right over to the track history tab here. So we've had two races this year. We've had Las Vegas and Darlington are the two intermediate tracks they've been on so far this year. Justin Allgaier, Corey Day, Sheldon Creed, and Sammy Smith are the only four drivers who have got top tens in both of those races. Allgaier's coming off the win at Darlington. And then in terms of average finish, William Byron, again, with that one sample, is right there at the top. Justin Allgaier has been dominant with 3 wins, 7 top fives in the last 9 races. 500. He's also leads in laps led by a ton. 567 laps led and a 4.9 average start, 7.2 average finish, and he's been even better than the average finish has shown with a 4.7 average finish, which is largely due to his Texas run, where his average run during that race was 10th. I believe he got caught up in a wreck and ended up finished 35th, brought that number down. So I do like looking at that gap of how their average finish is versus how they've been running. Are they getting into some bad luck? So that's one thing that we can look at a little bit in terms of looking at average running position. Not be Jesse Love over the last 9 races does not have any wins on intermediate tracks. He's only got 1 top 5, but he's been very consistent. He would be, I'm just going to take Byron out. He's got the second best average finish at 7.8. He's finished 9 of those races. He's one of only 3 drivers to finish all 9 of those races inside the top 20. He's also tied for second with 6 top 10s over those 9 races as well. Tied with Brandon Jones, who also has 3 top 5s, 2 wins over that time. Finished runner-up at the most recent race at Darlington. His win came at Kansas last year, as well as Darlington as well. So very good on Darlington. We talked about how good he is here as well. So he's a really good intermediate racer, and he is 10-5 this week, right up there near the top. So we're going to have some stuff we're going to have to figure out in terms of practice and qualifying, whether we're going up and loading up on these 12K guys or one 12K guy, one 10K guy and down. Generally, we're probably going to want, if we're sorting the sheet by pricing here again, looking at, let's just say Sam Marin up those top 7 drivers. I'm thinking in terms of um, lineup builds for DraftKings, we're going to want 2 of those drivers. So we're not going to be able to jam Byron and Allgaier, and I think we're going to be choosing between them most likely, and then grabbing one of these other guys. And if you're going to be going with a Jones or a Cruz in that 10K range, especially a Jones, who's #1 in our model right now, we're definitely going to have to find some value down below, and we're going to be skipping over this 9K and pretty much the whole 8K range as well. So balance versus stars and scrubs, we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. On the season right now, we've got, let me just go over here and we're going to go look at the season stuff, current form and season. Let's just look at the current form over the last 5 races. We've got 9 races on the season. Justin Allgaier leads both of them. He's got a win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s over the last 5 races. So only he and Brandon Jones have finished each of the last 5 races inside the top 10. And then him and Brandon Jones and Carson Quapple here, they also lead with 3 top 5s during that time as well. And then, of course, DK with all the laps led that Justin Allgaier's got 67.9, which has been very good. 3 wins on the season. Sheldon Creed's got a win, Sawalowicz and Austin Hill here as well. So that pretty much covers the O'Reilly Auto Parts series. So with that, we should jump in and we will look at the Cup series here. We've got same thing, and what we're going to start with is just looking at the pricing. This week, we've got the salary trends is uploaded here. 11K for Denny Hamlin at the top. He's been 11K. This is the 4th straight week with him at 11K. Christopher Bell's price keeps going up. He's back up to 10.7. He's been trending up since Darlington, where he was sub 10K. I don't think we're going to see him sub 10K very much more this season. Kind of a surprise here is Kyle Larson dropped down 1,000 at 10.5. So maybe there's a little bit of value there, a little bit below his. He's actually a little bit above his season average as he started in the 9K range at Daytona, Atlanta, and COTA. But in terms of getting into the call it, I don't know if you want to call it the real season, but 2 super speedways and a road course there, it isn't really a true test. So I love seeing that price come down, especially after Bristol. He looked dominant. He's on 32 race winless streak right now. I think that could come to an end here. This was the location of his very last win in the spring race of Kansas. So he won 3 races early last year. The last one came at Kansas. And then we'll go and look at track history here a little bit in the next gen era, which goes back to a little bit of spelling error, goes back to 2022. So we've got 8 races in that sample size to look at going back to the next gen era. And we're going to sort by average finish, first of all. But I wanted to talk about a few race notes, things that we should be looking at in terms of trends that have happened over the last few races in those 8 races in the next gen era. And first of all, we've got the winner has started top 5 in 4 of the last 5 races. So track position, very huge. Winner has started top 10 in 7 of 8 races. The winner has been top 10 in practice in 7 of 8 races. So we got a strong correlation of practice, unlike what we've seen in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, and the winner was first in practice in 4 of the 8 races. So strong car in practice has correlated very well into race speed as well. And I mean, that's not even looking at the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 lap averages either. Practice correlation to finish position has been 0.300 or higher in 6 of the 8. And we can see that on the Kansas Optimal Lineup tab here this week. Down here, this is correlation from practice to finishing position. And then this is correlation from practice to your dominators. Now, this number we want to be positive, this one to be negative. So anything over 0.3 and higher, we like it there, highly correlated to finishing position. Anything from negative 0.3 and lower is highly correlated to our dominators. So you can look at that throughout the Kansas Optimal Lineup tab, and we'll go over that here shortly as well. But back to a few of the notes. Looking at the lap leaders, where they started and their practice speeds shows us quite a bit here as well. It's going to kind of give us a little bit of a clue into how we should be building lineups for the race. I know we haven't seen practice and qualifying, but this is the data that we break down before we see that data. Then we recalculate our models. And then on the live show on Sunday, that's when we will go over top plays based on practice and that sort of stuff. So the 2025 race in the fall, we had the lap leader had 159 laps, started second, practiced third. And we'll do this through the Kansas Optimal, just a little bit easier to see because that's where I've got the practice speed beside. In the spring race of 2025, Kyle Larson led 221 laps. He started first, practiced ninth. So there's that top 10. Lap leader Christopher Bell, he started first in the fall race of 2024, practiced 12th, started first. So that's back to back pole sitters that were the top dominators. Then we go into the 2024 spring race where we only had 63 was the lap leader in this race. Kyle Larson started fourth, practiced ninth. In the fall race of 2023, 99 laps led from Kyle Larson from second starting position. He was fourth in practice. Spring race, we had Kyle Larson start second, practice seventh. 2022, in the fall race, we had 107 laps led from the third starting position from Alex Bowman. He was ninth in practice. And then the spring race of 2022, 116 laps led from Kurt Busch, who won the race from the fifth starting position. He was first in practice. So those starting positions from all 8 of those races were second, first, fourth, second, third, fifth. All of them from inside the top 5 starting position. And in 7 of those 8 races, the top dominator was top 10 in practice, and the other time he was 12th. And only one time has it come from first place, but top 5 starting or top 5 in practice 3 times out of those 8 races as well. Now we talked about it in the O'Reilly Auto Parts. I think it makes sense to look at what the pole sitter. We're always deciding, is the pole sitter going to be the favorite to be the dominator? It showed that it was not the case in terms of O'Reilly Auto Parts. And actually, it's about the same when we start looking at the Cup Series as well. It's gone. The pole sitter has gone this many laps led over the last 8 races: 19, 221, 122. So those 2 races back to back, pole sitter was very strong, top dominator. But then we went 5 laps led: 15, 10, 38, and 37. So not necessarily, again, not necessarily looking at the pole sitter to be the top dominator. We are definitely looking at 1 or 2 drivers inside that top 5. We generally don't see 3 dominators here, but usually that one strong dominator, 100 plus, and then it's either going to be 2 top dominators, 100 plus, or we're going to see one kind of in the 150 to 200 range. And then we were going to have probably, 3 or 4 that lead 40 or more laps in there as well. And again, we're going to want to be looking at practice speeds, very, very correlated this week, something we haven't seen. So a little bit more than we've seen at Darlington for sure. Darlington was a little more wide open with that 750 horsepower package. We're back down to that 670. So like I mentioned earlier, we do want to be comparing a little bit more in terms of what we've seen at the Las Vegas race earlier this year rather than the Darlington race, because it's a little two, I wouldn't say totally, but very different packages that were used across those races. I don't mind looking at the intermediate track type history going back to the start of last year, because all those races last year used that same 670 horsepower package. So Las Vegas, what we've seen, Denny Hamlin dominated, led 134 laps. He's actually dominated the last 2 Las Vegas races, if you want to look at that even closer. Led 134 laps this spring at Las Vegas, had 100 DK points. Second, we had Chase Elliott, and then we had William Byron, Christopher Bell, and then Ty Gibbs rounded out that top 5. Now, going back and looking at just track history and looking at some of those numbers in the next gen era, Kyle Larson has been dominant. He's won each of the last 2 spring races. And that last year's spring race was his last win. So just like last week, I think this is a place where he can break out and end that winless streak. He was very close last week, dominating 284 laps at Bristol, but ended up third. So he's coming in. I think the momentum's coming in strong. Like I said, the price has dropped 1,000, which is very, very key. I also don't mind putting a win bet on him. I think he was like plus 325. And actually, we're going to go over and look at Pitt by the numbers here again this week. Something I've been doing more and more and more. This is absolutely amazing site to go check out. Even if you just want to look and bet on NASCAR, absolutely amazing to go over and be able to compare 5 different books and see those winning numbers. Yeah, Kyle Larson right now, if you go over to DK Sportsbook, is his best number, plus 650. So huge range in terms of comparing FanDuel and DK. If you're not shopping for odds, you're leaving a lot of value on the table each and every week. So go check out pitbynumbers.com. He's also got all of his content up. This is a good one. This is the 6 Kansas bets that we can't stop thinking about. And they are just going to scroll through really quickly. Really likes the Toyotas. Win bets with Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell early on, Chase Briscoe, Ryan Preece top 10, and Brad Keselowski top 10, and the Zane Smith top 10. So you can go ahead and read a little bit more about those. He's also got, if you go to the content page, got a couple articles up talking about Ryan Blaney, the best driver in NASCAR right now. His pit crew hasn't gotten the memo. It's a good read. Definitely go check that out. But yeah, let's go back over. So I do like betting Larson outright before practice. If he comes in with a strong practice and qualifies up front, let's just say even inside that top five as a strong practice run, I think we're going to see those outright odds probably drop from plus 650 probably back down to where we've seen on some of those other sites at like plus 300 to plus 400, plus 500 at the most if he has a strong practice in qualifying. So I think we can get ahead of it here and maybe throw a bet down on Kyle Larson. I do like that. But yeah, he leads the way with a 6.3 average finish over the 8 races, and that includes a 26th at the fall race in 2024. Got those 2 wins, leads all drivers. He's second to Denny Hamlin with 5 top 5s. He's tied with Hamlin and Christopher Bell. They all 3 of them have 7 top 10s in the 8 next gen era races. Larson's also been the lap leader. Denny Hamlin is second. So I think like last week, it's going to come down to like Larson and Hamlin had won 4 of the previous 5 races at Bristol. I think, we're looking at the same. I know the wins haven't been there the same as they've been for Bristol for these 2 drivers, but they are the class of the field here. Denny Hamlin coming off of, he would be the leader in terms of average finish if not for his mechanical issues in the spring race last year that led to a 36th place finish. I think he lost power steering near the end of that race. He was running inside the top 10 all day. So that could easily have been the only driver with 8 top 10s across the 8 races, but that didn't happen. He leads everyone with 6 top 5s. And like I said, he's tied with 7 top 10s. He's right behind Larson with a 7.5 average finish. He's led 330 laps led and is averaging over 63 DK points. The only 2 drivers leading over or having over 60 DK point average over those 8 races in the next gen era. Christopher Bell, this is going to be the decision at the top this week because we've got a lot of drivers with a lot of either momentum coming in, strong track history. Christopher Bell's got 5 straight top 10s here, 5 straight finishes of 8 or better, and 7 top 10s, like I said, in the 8 races in the next gen era, with 4 top 5s in there as well, which is third in terms of top 5s. Alex Bowman wasn't great in the fall last year, but had 6 straight top 10s before that. Chase Elliott won the fall race last year, has been very, very consistent here as well with 5 top 10s in the last 6 races at the track. And then we start getting to the point we're seeing a lot of drivers that are very up and down at the track. So probably want to see some practice out of them. Ross Chastain's price came back up this week, coming back to intermediate tracks. But he's finished 11th and 18th in his last 2 since he won the fall race in 2024, and then outside the top 10 again in 2024 spring race and the 2023 fall race. So very inconsistent, very much a roller coaster ride in terms of Chastain's track history, but he has shown the upside here, and he is the only driver to finish inside the top 20 in all 8 of the next gen races here. So a little bit of a consistency there, but at 8,100, we need more than a top 20. We probably need inside that top 10 again. So we're going to need to see some speed out of him. Ryan Blaney, 24th here in the fall last year. He, in the spring race last year, was 3rd, 4th in the fall the year before that. So he has shown a little bit of upside here with those top 5s. But outside of that, he's finished outside the top 10 in 3 previous races before that and only has 3 top 10s in the 8 races. So not very consistent overall in terms of that top end speed that we need to see in that 10K range. So for me, it's, and we'll look at it after here. Byron has got top 10s in 2 of his last 3, but out 15th or worse in 3 of the last 5. So a little bit of inconsistency there. Same with Bubba Wallace. He was 5th in the fall last year, 2 races outside of 30th, 2 more outside the top 15. He won here back in the fall race of 2022. He had a nice little stretch of 3 straight top 10s, including that win and back-to-back top 5s as well. So sorting by price here again, for me, it's going to be 1, possibly even pairing 2 of Hamlin, Bell, and Larson together. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. And then we're going to want to dip down into that mid-range. Now, moving over to the optimal lineup tab, just to kind of look at in terms of pricing and how we're going to put our lineups together. As you can see, we had two guys over 10K last year, Hamlin and Bell. Both led over 40 laps. Hamlin was the lap leader with 159. And then we had three drivers with double-digit place differential in there. And Chase Elliott, just very solid day, led 24 laps, but he was 9K. So we had three drivers over 9K, one in the 7, one in the 6, and then one down in the 4K range with Ty Dillon, who picked up 20 place differential points. And with that, he was 10th in practice, so we could probably predict that a little bit. I don't know exactly. I wish I had ownership numbers from these previous races. I would assume starting 33rd with 10th in practice that we've probably seen him in that 20-30% range in terms of GPP. So he definitely paid off there. There's only two drivers that had 10x on their price last year, and it was Denny Hamlin, who was the top dominator, and then Ty Dillon, who was the top value play. So they easily went together in the optimal lineup there. Moving to the spring race last year, we had two drivers again over 10x, and it was Kyle Larson and Josh Berry. Kyle Larson led 221 laps. Josh Berry started 38th. He was 7th in practice, so similar sentiment here. He was 7,200, probably around that same ownership level that paid off. So chalk paid off there with Berry's value last year. We had the one driver in the 11, a little bit more balanced after Kyle Larson's top dominator performance last year. They were all double-digit place differential, 14 or more place differential points for all five of the drivers that came in. One in the 8, three in the 7K range, and then Shane Van Gisbergen down here in the 5K range in that race. That isn't typically what we see in terms of lineup build, and we'll see that as we go a little bit further here into the fall race of 2024. Again, we had three drivers, so very much like the fall race in 2025, we have three drivers over 9K, two in the 10, one in the 9. One of them is the top dominator. Ross Chastain was under 8K and give us 19 place differential and 52 laps led. So he was definitely up there as a top play. He ended up winning the race from 20th position. He was the only driver to hit 10x in that race. So again, we had three drivers over 9K. We had one in the 7, one in the 6, one in the 5. So very high end, more of a stars and scrub type build there. So it's like three, and I'm kind of, when I'm setting these up and figuring out the optimal lineups, I am looking at high tier drivers, anything from 9,500 and up, and then mid tier kind of in that 8,900 to 7,500, and then the low mid tier from 7 to 7,500, and then your bottom tier is like anything below 7K. So we have three high end drivers, one mid tier, and then two value guys, much like we've seen in the other race. So similar here a little bit. It's kind of a mix of both, where we had two high-end drivers over 11K in this race, both leading first and second in laps led. Chris Buescher was 7,500. He was third in laps led. So all three dominators in this race. We didn't have that high-end 100-plus dominator in this spring race of 2024. We did have two drivers over 11K, two in the 7s and two in the 5s. So two mid-tier, two high-end, and two value plays. So a little bit more of a balance there. But again, we're always seeing 2 to 3 drivers in that 9,500 and up. Just even say this week, 9,500 and up is 7 drivers. You stretch that out, you're looking at Logano from 8,700 and up. So I like to say from the top 7, 9,500 and up, we're looking at probably 2 drivers for sure, and possibly even 3. And if that's the case, we're going to be dipping down to 6,500 down. We're going to be looking at 2 or 3 drivers down here. But generally, if you're mixing 2 or 3 up top, you're going to be skipping over this next range and coming down into that high 7s, mid 7K range for that lineup build. And practice and qualifying is going to obviously determine how this is going to play out in the end. We'll just kind of keep going and see these trends continue. Here we had 2 drivers, 9,800 and 10.5, Kyle Larson and Reddick, with 1 in the 8, 2 in the 7s, 1 in the 6. So very balanced mid-tier value in here with not a whole bunch of place differential, just some strong finishing. Spring race of 2023, we had 4 drivers over 9K in that one, and then we had 1 in the 5, 1 in the 4. In 2022, we've seen 10, 3, 11, and then 2 in the 8K range, and then 1 in the 6, 1 in the 5. And finally, the spring race of 2022, we saw 9,800 Kyle Busch and an 11-1 Kyle Larson fit in there at the top. Neither really give you place differential or a whole bunch of dominator points, just very solid finishes at second and third. Kurt Busch won with 116 laps led at 7,100. So he dominated their 15x return at that price. We're generally seeing the top end drivers that are getting to the top of Kansas, the best cars, which obviously are going to be your highest priced drivers in there as well. So it looks like we're going to need 2 to 3 drivers from that 9,500 and up range, and then we're probably going to need 1 to 2 drivers in the mid tier, and then probably looking at 2 to 3 drivers from that 6,500 and down range, I would call it. Those low end value plays that are probably, like I said, we've been able to kind of pinpoint those bottom end value plays very well because we've got huge place differential upside, especially when you're comparing, like I said, Ty Dillon finished 13th, started 33rd, give you 20 place differential points. His practice speed was 10th. Over here, we had Josh Berry who did it. Where's Josh Berry? He was 7th in practice. The value plays here. Ryan Preece was 6,100. It was 21 place differential. Finished 16th in this race. He did not show the practice in this one, so take that with a grain of salt. Zane Smith, he finished 10th in this race. He was 17th in practice, so he did show a little bit of practice. Not better than a starting position, although. So he was probably, those two might have been a little bit lower owned in this race in terms of GPP lineups. Justin Haley, Todd Gilliland here, 18th and 14th. We've got 24th in practice, 29th in practice. So more just the last 2 races where we've been really been very chalky value plays that were starting near the back, showed us a lot of speed in practice. But then we've also seen those value plays who were probably 5 to 10% owned, who didn't show much in practice, but were able to make those strides during the race and just take advantage of opportunities that came along. So, but our lineup build has kind of remained the same throughout all of those races that we've seen, except for that spring race in 2024, which was a little bit different. We didn't really see that high end dominator. All right, so we've got the optimal lineups. We've got the salary trends tab updated this week. We've got the race notes, which is a lot of the stuff that we went over um, earlier. We've got the form, the track history, all of that is up. And like I said, you're going to want to. We've got Saturday afternoon practice and qualifying. The race is on Sunday afternoon, so make sure Sunday morning we will be going live on YouTube here again to talk about the practice speeds, talk about the fantasy matrix, who stands out as top plays, core plays, leverage plays in the top tier, top value plays, mid tier plays. We're going to want to look at them all and kind of go over how we're going to construct our lineups, both in cash games and for GPP for the Kansas race. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate everyone's support. If you could go ahead and smash that like button. And if you're looking for a copy of the cheat sheet, you're not a member of Jagerbombs Fantasy Sports, head over to www.patreon.com/Jagerbombs and you'll be able to pick up a NASCAR package for $15 a month, which is going to give you access to trucks, O'Reilly Auto Parts, and the Cup Series sheets every single week. This video as well, going to give you access into our Discord with our members. We've got up-to-date news feeds in there from like Bob Pockris and other top people in the NASCAR media, especially during practice and qualifying. A lot of good notes in there. And then, like I said, follow us on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9, myself at C Durrell Fantasy, and then again at Red Stag 007 for Dane. And then I always talk about Pit by Numbers. We showed the website there with the odds and stuff. He shares a lot of information on Twitter as well. You're going to want to check him out at Pit by Numbers. Thanks for tuning in to another preview show, and we'll see you Sunday morning when we go live.